Okay, salam sejahtera and good morning to everyone. Welcome to Research on Friday. My name is Jin Yin and I will be serving as your moderator today. You'll be hearing a presentation from Dr. Fairuz Zamani on his research, as you can see in our sharing today, titled Understanding Inspirations Behind Music Compositions, an examination on 4 Malaysian contemporary piano pieces. All right, so before we begin, I would like to announce a few housekeeping notes. So today's session is being conducted on WebEx and streamed to Facebook Live. You are welcome to share today's sharing session on Facebook, and please like our Facebook page at USM for more exciting upcoming events and sharing. CSD and CPT points will be given to the USM staffs and students. Then the link will be provided in the chat at the end of today's session. So if you have any questions for our presenter, Dr. Fairuz, please submit the questions via the chat feature on WebEx and Facebook Live. We will be able to answer them during the Q&A session at the end of the sharing. So to ensure the session going smoothly, please mute your mics, and let me now introduce our speaker. So Dr. Fairuz is a faculty member of music department at School of the Arts. And he graduated with a PhD in music performance from UCSI, focusing on performing works by a Malaysian composer, Razak Abdul Aziz. He also holds postgraduate degree in musicology and undergraduate degree in music composition from University of Malaya and University Technology Mara. Among his notable works as a composer include Nuance of Rebut Fantasy, Mek Mulong Cycle, which were commissioned by Jabatan Kebudayaan and Kesenian Negara for the National Choir of Malaysia. He had also premiered his short song cycle Images at KL Performing Arts Centre, KLPAC, as part of Malaysian Composer Series in 2017 program. He was also the resident arranger for the National Choir of Malaysia from 2008 to 2013. Now, Dr. Fairuz also actively performed with National Symphony Orchestra of Malaysia as a tutti player. He is also a repetitor and had worked with several international soloists from Mongolia, Germany, Poland, USA, and Japan, as well as local soloists and opera productions. So now moving along to our session, please welcome Dr. Fairuz.
Thank you, Ms. Tan, for the introduction. Allow me to share my PowerPoint slides for today's talk. Assalamualaikum and good morning to everyone. Today I'll be talking about a research that I'm working on. It's about understanding inspirations behind music compositions, an examination on 4 Malaysian contemporary piano pieces. Before we go further into this topic, I would like to give some definitions on inspiration. So according to Oxford 2022, what is inspiration is the process of being mentally stimulated to do or to feel something, especially to do something creative. Cambridge 2022 defined inspiration as someone or something that gives you idea or ideas for doing something. An object or event could inspire people differently. For example, observation of a structure, say a building, a museum, a house, or anything, could inspire people to compose music, produce paintings, write plays, design products, etc. So it is a testament that an observation could inspire people to write different things, to produce different creative works. And today's talk would focus on inspirations behind 4 selected contemporary piano works by Malaysian composers. So the selected piano works are from Freehand 2022, second Malaysian Contemporary Composers Piano Festival that was held at the Institute of Music UCSI University, Cheras, Kuala Lumpur, on June 25th, 2022, about a month ago. 9 works by non-Malaysian composers were selected for the event. The event comprised of a talk by the composer, meet the composers, where the composer and the performers are having a very close or intimate discussion, if you will, about the insights of these compositions. And it was the peak of the event was the evening concert, the gala concert. Just for some background, these 9 works were selected out of a pool of X number of works that were actually submitted for this festival. So the organizer only selected 9 for this festival. So the selected composers, the selected works, the composers are either from various higher learning institutions, either USM, UITM, UCSI, etc., or freelancers musicians. So the selected works today are, the first one is Berlabuh by Ainolnaim Azizol. Second is Secluded Voice by Rayner Naili. Third is Four Bagatelles by Johan Othman. And last, 2 Miniatures by yours truly, myself, Fairuz Zamani. These works are selected to demonstrate the broad spectrum of physical and non-physical objects and events where inspirations could derive from. You can actually see the poster on the right-hand side of this slide, and there's a QR code, but please do not scan because that is actually for ticket booking for the event. Unless you can time travel, you can scan that. Okay. Now, the first work is Berlabuh by Ainolnaim Azizol. Introduction about this composer. He now serves as an academic staff at UITM. He is our alumni of USM Music Program, undergrad program. I think he graduated in 2012 or 2013. I'm not too sure which year. Dr. Johan knows this person because he was Dr. Johan's student. So back to the work. So Berlabuh is a solo piano piece, written for solo piano piece with tape. It was inspired by a recent major flash flood event in Malaysia that happened between December 2021 and January 2022. The composition utilizes quasi-aleatory composition techniques with fragments of sound gesture cells, which are then tied and anchored together by the pianist with tape. The tape part serves as a sonic container and canvas for the piano part, consisting of rustling, windy trace sound. The piano part is written using quasi-through compose and micromotive cells. So these micromotive cells represents or tries to represent the wash objects during the flash flood. So a little bit on through compose. So what is through compose? It is a technique of musical composition where new melodic and thematic ideas are constantly being introduced, and hence there is little or no melodic or thematic repetition in each section or entire piece of music. Cell gestures for aleatoric technique performance. It's relating to or denoting music or other forms of art involving elements of random choice, sometimes using statistical or computer techniques during their composition, performance, and production. So as we can see on the right side of the screen, this is an excerpt from the work. Instead of having conventional way of writing music where the music is continuous, you can actually see the notes are being put into fragments and cells. So this is what the composer means by cell gestures in aleatoric technique. And these cell gestures are not to be played in a determined order. So the order of the performance or the cells being played is not predetermined by the composer. It is actually determined by the performer during the performance, responding to the current emotional state and the current surroundings that surrounds the performer during that time. So this is the piano part of it, the piano score, excerpt from the piano score. Now, this also involves tape, which is prepared by the composer through archival research and fieldwork, On the left side of the screen, we can actually see screenshots of news coverage of this catastrophic event, the flash flood event that happened in the country, happened to major part of the peninsula of Malaysia. And on the right side of the screen is actually the composer. This is Ainolnaim. He was producing the tape through recording sounds of nature, particularly winds and the rustling woods and leaves. So he manipulated the sound, and it becomes the tape that is together played with the composition, the piano part. So how does the work sound like? Now we have a video. So this is the performance video. The pianist is actually also an alumni of USI music program, Suhan, Dr. Ho Suhan. Now she serves an academic staff at UCSI University as a faculty member. Okay, I need to stop for a while. You actually see a monitor here on the right side of this pianist. This is actually to give that playback of the tape. You would actually be listening to rustling sounds. It's not noises from the video, unintentional, it's actually intentional. So when the pianist is playing along this piece, you would actually be hearing sounds of noises, if you will, which is actually the wind and rustling woods. So that was Berlabuh by Ainolnaim, performed by Dr. Johan. Next work is Secluded Voice by Rayner Naili, written for a solo piano. It was inspired by the composer's observations towards certain people at certain establishments. It's on how people with power abuses their positions for personal gains and interests, showing no respect towards the opinion of others, corrupted, and showing dictatorial behavior. Sounds too close to home, huh? As they are the one holding the positions of power, their voices are louder. This is demonstrated with loud dynamics in the composition, oppressing the lesser groups, demonstrated by the use of softer dynamics. The composition begins with musical sketches. So these sketches were written on a piece of paper called this ideas dump paper. This helps the composer to get clearer vision and direction towards writing the final outcome. The sketches here serve as guidelines. However, not everything from the sketch paper made its way into the composition. Let me discuss a bit or explain what are the elements that we could find in this sketch. As you can see, there are 4 shapes on the left side. The top one is a triangle. So the graph produced is in almost triangle pointed shape. And there is a square here. So this graph is squarish. And this is a round shape or a circle. So the graph sketched by the composer is following that shape, and this one supposedly he should be a hexagon. Not of course, because this sketch is just a sketch, so it's not as clear. But yeah, you can actually see the graph here is with edges. So these are the keywords. And we can also see here there is actually some musical ideas that the composer sketched down. And this is Secluded Voice for Solo Piano 2022 by the composer. So what are the details from the sketch that made their way into the composition? So the first one, the use of cluster chords. Uses of cluster chords to create tensions constantly heard throughout the piece. So what are cluster chords? Cluster chords are stacks of secundal. Secundal are chords constructed using interval seconds. So when it is cluster, you must have at least 3, like this one on the left side, stacks in seconds. And this one is a more clear example of cluster chords. The bottom part of the music excerpt, where you can see the notes on left hand and right hand are clustered together. So the next element that made its way into the composition is juxtaposition. Juxtaposition means 2 elements playing together. Both hands are playing at different expressions and dynamic levels. At the top part of the music excerpt, we can actually observe the right hand is playing P. P means soft, piano. Left hand, the bottom stanza, is F. F is forte, means loud. So both hands are playing at different level of dynamics and different expression. Here, the right hand is playing leggero. Leggero means light. And left hand is playing con forza, means with force. So both hands are playing at different level of dynamics and different level of expression. As the piece progresses, the dynamic contrasts switch hand while demonstrating the same musical ideas. Earlier, we actually see right hand is playing soft, left hand is playing loud. But here, at this excerpt, right hand is now taking over, playing the louder dynamic, and left hand is playing the softer dynamic, and it goes even much softer. This pointy thing that looks like a hairpin, pointing that direction, meaning it gets softer. And this expression mark called leggero means light. They change their character. They switch character, if you will. Though the higher pitch is always dominant, the louder dynamic is still played in the lower range here, as demonstrated in this part, depicting the grotesque and appalling abuse of power. Another element that made itself into this composition is rhythmic ratios. Ratios 3:2, 3:4, 3:5, and 5:4 are used to create interlocking effect. As demonstrated in these two excerpts, the top part, we actually could see 5. This is actually against 4, but it is divided not in its downbeat, but it is still 5 against 4. Now, in this excerpt, we can actually see this is 3 against 2, 3 against 2, and this is technically 3 against 4. Or it can also be 3 against 2, depending on how you look at it. This is to depict conflict between the voices, the louder voice and the softer voice, the oppressing group and the oppressed group. So this is the final outcome. This is also performed during the festival, performed by one of the academic staff, my faculty member of UCSI Institute of Music, Dr. Cadiz. I have to stop for a while because I need to explain something. So we can actually hear the pianist was playing notes in cluster. So that it sounds very cluttered, if you will. So that is the cluster chords the composer used for this composition. Now we can already hear the lower part is playing very loud and the higher voices is very soft. And now the role has changed. So the higher voices or the right hand is playing louder than the lower voices, which is played by the left hand. Alamak. Sorry. I accidentally restarted this video. Just skip this part out. So that was Secluded Voice by Rayner Naili. Next is Four Bagatelles by our own Dr. Johan Othman. Written for a solo piano, the idea of four bagatelles can be associated with the Eastern concept of impermanence or something that lasts only within a fleeting moment. They are akin to Japanese haiku. Haiku is a type of short poem originated from Japan that consists of 17 syllables that adhere to 5-7-5 pattern in 3 lines, meaning 5 syllables, the first line, 7 syllables, second line, third line, 5 syllables. These small piano pieces that last for a brief moment, particularly the third bagatelle, are intended to illustrate the general Eastern idea of impermanence using the Western musical language or idioms. The core is close to a general Eastern philosophical ideas of emptiness. It is vague and abstract, yet complete. The work itself is not self-explanatory, and it is open to interpretation. Compositional references and materials. What is a bagatelle? Bagatelle is a short piano piece, typically a short piece of music, typically written for the piano, and usually of a light, mellow character. Possibly the most famous bagatelles are by Beethoven. So the harmonic material of this composition, the composer used hexachordal combinatorial. It is a quality shared by 12 tone rows, whereby each section of a row and a proportionate number of its transformations combine to form aggregates. Aggregates means all 12 chromatic notes on the piano in standard Western music. So as we can see here on the right side of the screen, there are 2 parts. There are 2 music excerpts. These are sketches by the composer where he was making some calculation, if you will, in layman's terms, calculation of getting this hexachordal combinatorial. So this derives, this zero means this is the prime zero. In 12-tone serialism, we have prime, we have inversion, we have retrograde and retrograde inversion. So the combination of prime and inversion. This is prime, this is inversion. Of course, I will not go much further into this because it becomes more theoretical if I were to venture into this. This needs a separate session. And the composer also integrated the idea of local indiscipline, which was introduced by Pierre Boulez, a very established, a very prominent 20th century French composer. At the overall level, there is discipline and control. At the local level, there is an element of indiscipline, meaning a freedom to choose, to decide, and to reject. This is by Pierre Boulez himself in an interview with a musicologist in France in 1963. Pierre Boulez passed away in 2016, I think, quite recently. Well, that is actually very new, very recent in the context of Western music, Western classical music. The composer also used quartal harmony and quintal harmony. Quartal harmony is harmony that derives from the sonority that derives from a stack of fourths, and quintal harmony, sonority that derives from stack of fifths. The composer believes this type of harmony are the best interval or chord structures to support the compositional materials in this piano piece. This work is also a homage to Schoenberg, which is highly regarded and associated with 12-tone serialism, an innovation he started in early 20th century. And this goes back to the root and compositional journey of this composer. So these are the musical sketches of the 4 bagatelles. There's one oddity there because you can see bagatelle number 4 is typed in computer. But the first 3 bagatelles was written, the sketch was written by hand. So the first bagatelle, you can actually see the musical expressions and also the sketch on the notations. And the number 2, we can also see excerpts from the sketches. Number 3 is the shortest bagatelle of all 4, which consists only 6 bars. And we are now looking at the complete composition or complete piece of the 3rd bagatelle. And the 4th bagatelle is the longest of 4. So this lasts for about at least 60% of the whole entire piece. So the 4th bagatelle is the longest. And this is a performance video still played by our alumni, Dr. Ho Suhan, who now serves as a faculty member at UCSI University. She graduated from our undergrad music program. That was the first bagatelle. And that was the second one. And that was third one. So that was for Bagatelles by Johan Othman. Next is my own composition that was selected for this Freehand festival. Two miniatures consist of two short contrasting pieces for solo piano. The inspiration came from the composer's experience of watching the movie Jaws. It's a very old movie, directed by Steven Spielberg, where the main soundtrack by John Williams uses a pair of semitones in the lower register to depict the anxious, unnerving feelings, anticipating yet unprepared for a shark attack. I think most of us know these movies. And it is very close to all musicians, I think, because we actually use this reference in our all training class to understand the concept of minor second. Continue. The same material was also used in the opening bars of Dvořák's fourth movement from Ninth Symphony, the newer symphony, probably the most symphony of Dvořák's, that made famous in modern culture by a classical meme YouTube channel, Two Set Violin. I think this is also a very famous YouTube channel among classical musicians who like memes like me. Okay, so this is an attempt, my attempt to explore the possibilities of using a pair of notes in semitone, particularly A and B flat, as a compositional material. These pair of notes are being manipulated through various procedures throughout the two short pieces. So in the excerpt on the right side of the screen, these are the pair of notes. This is the pair of notes that I was talking about. This is A and B flat. So number one, it begins with a pair of notes in semitone as unaccompanied melody before receiving harmonic support in the lower register. So this is an excerpt from the first miniature. As you can see, this is A and B flat on the right hand side, played unaccompanied, and it only received harmonic support on left hand on the second bar onwards. And after a phrase, this material is now the accompanying material to a scale-wise melody in broken sixth. You can see that is actually going down scale-wise, descending, but in broken sixth. This work is tonal in nature. However, I actually use chromatic median relationship and quartal harmony moving in semitones throughout the piece as the harmonic procedure. So what is chromatic median relationship? It's actually a relationship that moves in median, in thirds, rather than in fifths or fourths, like in typical diatonic music. Quartal harmony, like I mentioned earlier, are harmonies that is produced through the stack of fourths, as you can see in this excerpt in bar 17. And there was also the use of vertical hemiola. This is achieved by having right hand and left hand playing separately, playing at the same time with different rhythmic ratios. So this is 3 against 2. Of course, the right hand is being separated into two parts, but this is still actually 3 against 2. It's not as straightforward, but this is 3 against 2. Believe me when I say that. The ratio becomes more complex in the second half, where it gets further divided into smaller values, but still keeping the 3 against 2 vertical hemiola. So this is an excerpt from bar 23, where you can actually see the division becomes more intricate, but this is actually still having that 3 against 2 idea, rather than a more complex rhythmic ratio. So number 2, the pair of notes of A and B flat, this pair of semitones, now becomes the main melody and were manipulated in various ways throughout the piece. This is lively and vigor, and with vigor, it changes of character into graceful dance in triple meter, a quasi-improvisation section in Middle Eastern flavor, and a coda that recalls materials from number 1. The change of keys in this piece corresponds with chromatic median relationship. However, tonic dominant relationship in the aggressive sections establishes the sense of commonality in listeners. Traditionally, we would read this section as G minor because we see we have 2 flats there. We don't see F sharp here yet. It's actually later part of the piece. We would actually, traditionally, we would say this is G minor, but this is modal in nature. So the tonal center of this mode is actually D, not G. So this is D and A. So D is the tonic or the tonal center. Hence, A is the dominant. So that is where the dominant tonic dominant relationship occurs or happens in this piece. The graceful dance in triple meter uses functional harmony. So functional means it corresponds with the diatonic and its harmonic decorations to harmonize the two-note melody. The melody is still using that two notes A and B flat, but now it's transposed to different degrees. But you can still hear later in the performance video that the pair of semitone is very apparent, is very glaring in this whole entire piece. So the section with the Middle Eastern flavor uses semitone material as accompaniment, playing freely in predetermined patterns. This is actually shown in the top part of the left-hand side of this extract. If I were to be technical with the so-called Middle Eastern flavor, this is actually double harmonic scale or Byzantine scale. I just use Middle Eastern flavor so that it's more relatable to general audience. So the left-hand part, the pattern has already been predetermined, and this changes a few times throughout this section. So the left-hand part is to be played rapidly but not rushed, and the rhythmic synchronization between both hands is not important here, because what matters is the rumbling sound of the left hand and also the quasi-improvisation part of the right hand. The coda recalls both materials from number one. First, one material over the main material of number two. So this is actually from number one, the descending scale, the descending melody from number one being put in slight accent, and this is the material from number two, the main material from number two. And then both materials from number one in the style of number two. So these are actually the broken six, and this is the semitone put in light accents. The piece ends with rapid passage with the pair of note A and B flat being played with strong accents, marking the final appearance of the said material to conclude two miniatures. So these are the last few bars, the last three bars of the two miniatures, the second part of the second piece of two miniatures. As you can see, the beginning of this sextuplet begins with A, and the top note that has the longer value in this bar is B flat. Same, this is actually still a sextuplet but divided into different types of grouping. It also begins with A, and the peak is at B flat. And the beginning of this running passage, the descending passage, running scale, begins with B flat, and it ends on the top A on the right hand. So it recalls back to the main material. So this is the performance video played by a student of UCSI music faculty, piano faculty, sorry. So this is to me. So you can actually hear the repeated sound, the ta-da, ta-da, all the time throughout this two pieces. That was the first miniature. Now the second miniature. So that was two miniature. And that is the end of my talk today. Now, thank you for tuning in. Now is question and answer session. I pass the floor back to Ms. Tan.
Thank you, Dr. Fairuz, for such an interesting and educational presentation. And I would like to congratulate you on the recent achievements, like being able to let the students to perform your works in the concerts. Do you have other upcoming concerts about your regarding all these Malaysian compositions?
We actually just had a concert, not me, but Dr. Johan and other composers, in MPO. Was it last Friday, I think? Yeah, it was last Friday, on 22nd of July. It was a collaboration between three countries. It was Malaysia, Singapore, and also Korea. Dr. Johan's work was presented there. My upcoming composition is going to be performed also in the Philharmonic Orchestra Hall in September for Hari Malaysia, where
Wow.
we have all 14 states representing all 14 states in the country. So I was selected to write for Sarawak.
Wow, that's very interesting and exciting. And please keep us updated with this. And I'm looking forward to this performance. Yeah, and as from your presentation, I understand that contemporary works, does not receive as much attention as other, how people nowadays they would listen and favor popular music. When we mention about contemporary works, they also, you always relate to popular music, right? So I think from today's presentation, it's interesting that we can make others aware that contemporary music include many other compositional style and attitudes, such as aleatory music, 12-tone method, and short motif, with even compositional with such a short motif, and you can make it into a composition. Okay. But I would like everyone, if you have questions, please submit in the chat, and you can also use the chat features in Facebook Live. Okay. Thank you. And maybe I have some questions if others don't have. For some audience, contemporary music is new to them. So what would you suggest the audience can do to practice appreciating contemporary music?
Oh, that's actually a very interesting question. There is no fixed method or a cookie cutter way to approach to contemporary music. What Dr. Johan did with his friends last weekend, before attending the concert at NPO, he actually gave a crash course on Western art music from Baroque to the contemporary music in 10 minutes using videos. That's what he did. I think it worked because I could see his friends that attended the concert could appreciate the music that was played. Well, most of the music that was played. Probably, because contemporary music is such an alien thing, even for among musicians, let alone non-musicians and general public. What I think we could do to somehow encourage is, to approach them personally like that, like what Dr. Johan did with his friends and colleagues. That is on the smaller level. On the grander level or bigger level, I think we should start incorporating local elements that is more relatable to the general audience. Because, as I'm speaking as a Malaysian, we have a lot of things that we could explore and exploit into compositions that is more relatable to general public, which I think is a good medium, or probably one of the best medium to attract general audience, local audience first, into listening to contemporary local works, specifically.
Yes, I agree so as well. So when you mention about local elements, do you think, having all the composers who are very familiar with the Western art, Western music history, and if you would include local composition, do you think that the Malaysian contemporary composition would have a lot of advantages to the international market?
I think we do, because we have this slogan that we have been hearing over the past, I don't know, so many years: Malaysia truly Asia. So technically, the whole country has this Asian tradition, which encompasses many races and religions. So I think that is an advantage for us, because contemporary music that, of course, we are using all these Western idioms. I just see all these idioms, Western idioms, if you will, as just a tool. Because some people say, oh, we should not be writing music with local elements using Western idiom. No, this is just tool. Like some people say you should cut meat using knife. Some people say you should cut meat using machines. It's just a tool. Ultimately, you just want to cut that meat so that you can process it to produce whatever you want to produce. So same thing also for contemporary music, for composition. The Western idioms or Western approach is just a tool to achieve the goal, which is to promote and to write works based or inspired by local idioms, which we have a lot in this country. if not too much, I would say we have almost unlimited resources when it comes to getting inspirations, because our culture, our cultural background is so varied, yet it is so unified.
Yes, yes, exactly. We have like the Bumi Putra, the culture from Sarawak and Sabah. And not only that, we have all big three races and different cultures. I think it's very rich, and can be our selling point. Okay. What do you think? Or like you mentioned about tools from Western art, music, and also local elements. Would you suggest to maybe future composers or young composers who would like to explore and practice? Do you have a formula to allow them to become, to nurture this music composition in Malaysia?
The first step that I would recommend is to learn as much as possible, learn music theory, because with strong music theory background, you would know, or you would discover which musical language suits you the best. I'm not saying one language is better than the other, no, because every person, every composer has their own preference. And there's no one language is better or more superior or inferior than the other. That's my opinion. Of course, probably other composers don't agree with this, but this is what I think. First step is to learn as much as possible about music theory and about works of other composers and approaches to compositions, because as the so-called common music theory or common music knowledge had evolved since the medieval era, if you will, until now, at least easily 800, 900 years of knowledge. I'm sure that at least one or two musical language or approach that actually suits your work. And of course, you also have to know who your audience is lah. If you have audience that prefers certain types of music, so you have to write certain types of music for that particular audience. I'm actually a very strong advocate of writing for the audience. Probably other people don't agree this, but I think because art only survives, only lives with crowd, with audience. If you don't have audience to come and watch and support your art, I think that defeats the purpose of performance itself.
Yes, agree. It's like you have a supply and you must have a demand to supply, isn't it?
Correct, correct.
Yes. Okay. So speaking of, encouraging young composers to compose more, to venture into contemporary music more, do you have a community that have a pool of Malaysian composers who always ventures into these contemporary works?
As of now, one of probably the most active in the country is MCC. It stands for Malaysian Composer Collectives. These comprise of composers from all over the countries and of different backgrounds. So for example, we have composers who likes electronic music, composers who likes 12 tone, composer like myself who still prefer tonal, but it's not diatonic. I mean, it's still tonal, but not typical tonal like Mozart and Beethoven. There are also composers who likes jazz idioms. There are also composers who prefer traditional elements in their composition. So MCC actually is a very active platform for composers, contemporary composers in Malaysia.
Okay, good to know that we have one, MCC association to help us to promote this. Okay, so just one last question, perhaps, is about your composition. I see that you mentioned you are trying to explore the A and B flat. This is a very short motif in your composition. Would you consider these as minimalism?
Oh, this is not minimalism. Because minimalism is basic. Well, by definition, it's very minimal. You have very minimal material to be repeated all over again, over time with slight changes of parameters. So probably you have the same material being repeated, for example, but the parameter changes. The variables, my mistake, not parameter. The variable change. Probably you change the time signature, you change the rhythmic to give the impression that the music is moving within that minimal spectrum. But this is just a material that it's just a compositional material. So it looks minimal, but it does not sound minimal.
I see. Okay, that's good to know. All right. I think I would like to say thank you again for showing us this educational presentation, and we now know, are aware of these piano works by Dr. Johan, right? The four Bagatelles, and also Rayner Naili on her Secluded Voice, and Berlabuh, and also by Berlabuh by Ainolnaim Azizol, and two miniatures by you. All right, so actually we are so excited, and thank you everyone who tuned in today. So I would like to wrap up the session by quoting Stockhausen. Like what he said, he's an adventure, he liked invention, and he liked discovery. So I would encourage everyone not just, be familiar with what you already know, but always explore and become adventure, explore a possible other genre in contemporary music so that we can promote our own composition. And you can also perform if you are a musician yourself or practitioner yourself. So thank you very much again, Dr. Fairuz. And for those who, for USM staff and students, please click the link given in the chat, all right, for the CSD and CPT points. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and have a good day. And please keep in contact with our Facebook, all right, Arts USM again for our next session and exciting upcoming events.